They should give us some level of protection.
I guess that depends on what we need protection from.
You afraid you're gonna run into a Titan? Where's your sense of adventure?
Beware, spoiler-phobes! You have stumbled into A Storm of Spoilers, a podcast that realizes the monsters in this television show are the fathers. This podcast is split into 3 sections. In the first section, we call The Calm. Neil and I will cover the 6th episode of the 2nd season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, titled Requiem, where the show jumps through all of the hoops to have both Godzilla and King Kong in a single episode. Then, in a short Storm section, we'll use what Apple has told us to expect next week to speculate about this time dilation stuff once again. Finally, in our 3rd segment, The Godzilla Project, Neil wraps up production on Godzilla Awakening. Why, hello again, I am Dave Gonzalez.
And I'm Neil Miller, and welcome back to A Storm of Spoilers once again. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Of course, next week we will be back. There are 10 episodes of this season of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, season 2. We will be covering all of them, regardless of quality. Next week, of course, we'll get another one on Friday, which means you'll get a new pod on Saturday. And, at this point, Dave has planned out such a wonderful RPG game for 10 weeks. We can't stop. We can't interrupt that at any point. So we're on this ride for the extent of this ride, which is something we're going to talk about here in a second. Why will we talk about that? Because you listeners can send us a raven at stormofspoilers@gmail.com if you have questions, comments, corrections, theories, lore, questions for either the Storm, or if you'd like to become part of the creative brain trust on the Godzilla project that is Godzilla Awakening. Executive producer credits are available. If you'd like to send in your thoughts on how to make my fictional movie better, all of that is very appreciated, and we have several that we're going to talk about this week. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us 5-star rating. Say whatever you want. You can leave us comments. We got a Spotify comment that we'll talk about here in a little bit. We didn't get any reviews again this week. This is like several weeks in a row, Dave, but I am choosing to believe that this is less to do with us and the quality of this podcast and more to do with the fact that the show we're covering maybe isn't igniting fires in the hearts of the people.
Maybe it's a old, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all situation. And I do appreciate that if the show's bad, they don't also assume Storm of Spoilers is bad. That's nice.
Yes. The other thing that I am also assuming is that most of our wonderful listeners are waiting for the return of House of the Dragon season 3 to drop those Apple Podcast reviews when we will need to get into the algorithmic feeds of everybody searching for their, Westeros-based podcasts. So, that's fine with me. I love the strategic thinking that's going on there. You can also get this podcast in video form, youtube.com/@astormofspoilers. And make sure you are subscribed there. Make sure you like each video and the wonderful shorts that Dave is putting together. We also want to mention that we want to credit Pumpkin for the evolved Godzilla that we are using under Creative Commons, which continues to be the wonderful model that shows up at the beginning of every video. That saved Dave the time of not having to model Godzilla himself. It's pretty dope. So we appreciate that and the existence of the Creative Commons licensing system in general. You can also, if you would like to materially support this entire venture, which we very much appreciate, you can join us at patreon.com/Dave and Neil, Da7e and Neil, for not just the heartwarming effect of being a supporter and the knowledge that you are keeping Storm of Spoilers afloat, but also more stuff, more content. You will get coverage of movies that we're watching, other television shows that we're watching, behind the scenes stories about films that we love, and also films that are notoriously bad, including this week when we talked about the 1983 film Super Mario Bros. starring the very Italian Bob Hoskins and the very Italian John Leguizamo. One of the most infamously disastrous films of all time that was honestly very fun to talk about and research. Dave found a very, very cool internet archive of amazing Super Mario Bros. Content that we discussed. So highly recommend checking out the Adventure Pod. And of course, with your membership, you also get access to our Slack and our wonderful community. And if you subscribe at the small council level or above, that is the $10 level or above, you will starting next week, April 12th, get access to a new rewatch project. We're going to be starting Netflix's Dark for 26 weeks. That will join our portfolio that includes Twin Peaks, The Leftovers, and Hannibal as the week-to-week watch projects that we have completed. And that will also include, for all members at all levels, access to our Slack live watches on Sunday afternoons. Very excited to get that started again, this time in German. And
Are you going to learn how to say Sunday Mystery Day in German? Because I thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, I might learn how to say a whole bunch of things in German, including timey-wimey nonsense and murder. So that's where you can get more of our stuff. And that's what's going on in the greater universe of our podcasts. Let's kick off the calm this week, Dave, with I wanted to read this email from James.
Absolutely.
Because I thought it makes some important points and responds to some of the vibes that we're having around the Monarch show so far in season 2. James says, I've got to say that I agreed with you, and season 2 of Monarch is definitely a bit of a slog. This is the first time I've enjoyed listening to your podcast more than watching the actual TV show you're covering. I even find myself caring more about the imaginary Godzilla movie that's being produced than the real show that you're covering. Seems as though this season could have been trimmed down a little. Maybe 8 episodes would have been enough, or keep it at 10, but cut 5 to 10 minutes from each. That last strategy we call the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms effect. First of all, thank you, James. I will be using part of this email to promote our podcast, because that is sort of what we're going for. Even if the show we're covering is not good, hopefully the podcast is entertaining. Also, very glad to hear that folks are enjoying the RPG Godzilla Project, because that is keeping me engaged at the very least. But Dave, I wanted to get your take on this last part here, which is, do we think, normally my opinion is we need more television. And usually these things are too short. Like eight episodes, seasons need to be 10. 40-minute, 30-minute episodes need to be hour-long episodes. And the persistent refrain of "that was fun, where's the rest of it?" is something that I find myself coming back to a lot with current day television. But maybe James has a point here. What do you think?
I think that it's easy to say this when a show is maybe not so good, but I think the impetus to say this to any show is like, it would have been better if it was shorter, is ultimately, I think, going away from what I like in TV. Like when we talk about the halcyon days of 22 episode seasons, we talk about sitting with a failure episode, and we talked about this a lot during our Lost rewatch during the pandemic. The strengths of having like a failure episode that nonetheless that's the version of the show that you get to talk about that week, I think is much more interesting than maybe like a binge of something that is, really taut in terms of like plot. I think there's a certain amount of I guess we'll find out with Dark, but like, very specific plotting placed up against character work where you actually want it to move faster. But I think the problem mostly with Monarch is it doesn't know what to do with its in-between episodes. And we have this sort of like false ticking clock for the first part of the season that Titan X is gonna like seemingly come to shore anytime. And then now we're sort of living in a world where Titan X is just sort of like somewhere and it's probably lost and we can't track it anymore, even though it was a big deal about how we could suddenly track it.
Sure. Even though we have a map of where it goes.
And we have a map of where it goes. So it's more that when Monarch decides to have little side episodes, it usually executes those, I think, in ways that are kind of inelegant. But I guess the danger of sort of like really giving into that is they have to sell this to get people to subscribe to Apple TV, and they have to say it's because there's going to be like monsters in every episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so technically they have to have monsters in every episode. So how do you write like an evolving series of characters based around that? I think what Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2 has done, unfortunately, is worst case scenario, it's become about how do we build an episode around one monster sequence. Best case scenario, it has something really interesting to say, but it has foolishly put it towards the back end of the season, which is, I'm hoping, what the end of this week's episode is hinting towards. Is there is a purpose for season 2. We just have not gotten there yet because it's been poorly paced. And a poorly paced season will make you feel like it's, maybe should have been shorter. But like, I don't know, take Friday Night Lights season 2, which is both poorly paced and unnaturally short. Like, nobody likes that. Everybody likes Friday Night Lights having the time, even if it has crappy episodes. So sure. I think I get where this impetus is coming from, but I encourage you to fight back against it and maybe just get really invested in Neil doing something crazy with a bad role in the back half of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree because as much as I want to go with James's general premise here in this specific instance, right? I don't want to encourage them, and them being the Hollywood brain trust that wants to make everything shorter and shitify my television, because they've already done so much damage coming down from 22 episodes of every season of Lost down to only 10 episodes or only 8 episodes. So, I think that we have to let shows sometimes be a little bit of a slog in order to get to the really good stuff, right? Like for every Monarch season 2 mid-season slog, we also get like the Pit season 2, which is just like absolutely lighting 16 hours on fire because it's just amazing for every single second. So and I will say overall this week, before we get into the details of it, does a little bit better of the water treading. And maybe that's just my thirst for seeing Godzilla on screen at all. But I will, I will say that like doing some more flashback stuff and advancing some more plot, maybe the fact that they're inserting yet another bad dad into the puzzle is doing a little bit better than the last couple of episodes. So I think in general it's moving in a much better direction. But before we get into the details, should we address this comment on Spotify from Michael, who said, just one point of clarification. I think the show is trying to say that Monarch Tim didn't want to out Korra as his source inside of Apex, so he led his boss to believe that his source was Shaw. And this is more to the point of like, is there something going on with Korra / May that the show is not telling us? And I do want to go, I want to go along with this, Michael. I really do. But I would also like the show to tell us that this is what's happening.
I think like 2 scenes later, Shaw walks into the plane and is like, Tim says our data gave us this. So I think they also say this from the other way. I would love for the show to be this smart. Yeah. I think that's what I was saying before, is like, if there is something at the end of this season that they were like holding back because it's like, it is what the season is about, I understand that they're doing that. I just think they could have done it like a little bit better.
Yeah.
So we're not out of the woods yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think last week's episode was kind of dumb.
Yeah. And, to Michael's credit, my brain is also doing this, where it is trying to give the show grace.
Yes.
And by maybe allowing it to be a little dumb and trying to create scenarios where it is smarter than it could actually be.
The way I'll classify it, and maybe this is my way of pivoting into the recap. Matter of fact, is it went from the show that was not able to read its own wiki to the show that then I think references its own wiki the most in any episode we've had this season. Like the previously on sort of gets there, but like we're back at Soda's bar. We meet Dr. Suzuki again.
Yep.
He has to explain the whole Titan phone. We have to get literal flashbacks to Project Hourglass, and then it turns out Project Hourglass is really important. So let's recap what happened this week on Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, and Requiem. We begin with King Kong.
Hell yeah.
It is 2 weeks ago on Skull Island, and Kentaro is sketching the big guy who's taking a walk and scratching himself. Kong catches Kentaro and turns a moment into mean mugging, scaring the young man back to the Apex camp. How you like this Kong, Neil, right at the top?
I mean, he looks all right. It's good to have our guy back and in the mix a little bit. And fine. Like I said, if we're gonna tread water, might as well involve some Kong.
Yeah. I do like how this is, points out that out of all the monsters that are featured on Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Kong is the only one that successfully emotes back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know what his character is.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what Titan X's character is, and we only kind of know Godzilla's character from the future Godzilla movies, which is he's the apex and he has to put everybody back in the hole.
Sure.
If you come out of the hole, Godzilla has to put you back in the hole. That's the way the world works.
Yeah, and I in general like the reminder that Kentaro is an artist that we get from this scene. He's got some real talent there, and this does give the show an excuse to keep Hiroshi in the plot, even though he has exited the general plot in the main timeline. So yeah, I'm okay with this. It definitely helps, I guess, put a salve on the fact that, as Kate points out later in the episode, Kentaro was just not involved in the saying goodbye moment for Hiroshi's death. So it's nice to see some of the time they got to spend together,
Speaking of that time, we head back to the Apex camp where his dad, Hiroshi, appreciates Kentaro's sketch of Kong and brought his son a beer. Turns out Kentaro has kind of assumed Kate is dead since she's been gone for 2 years, but Hiroshi shares that the Axis Mundi has dilated time and shares an experience where he fell into the Alaska portal for a day and got spat out in Africa a year later. Kentaro takes us all in stride, which is the first time in the episode I'm motivated to Google if we knew this already from season 1, but it seems like this is a new explanation that maybe Kentaro was aware of at some point, but definitely Kate fell into a hole before Hiroshi had fully joined the team at that point. So we didn't know it because we were sort of like with Kate and Shaw when they went into the Axis Mundi. So all of that stuff we were following as we were running around tracking Hiroshi in season 1. It's because he fell into that hole in Alaska and came out a year later in Africa where we pick up with him.
Sure. I guess the Axis Mundi is fairly large, because he went in and didn't encounter any of the other people who would have also been inside the Axis Mundi at the time, like his mother.
I mean, yeah, presumably his mother would be in there. I don't know if maybe there's a version of Shaw in there. It's sort of like what the end of the episode is going to have us asking. So that is interesting. But also, Neil, as you pointed out, as far as we know, he didn't run into his mother. As far as we know, he didn't run into like a Shaw, because this is new information, which is he wasn't running around doing his stepfather, Bill Randa's research about portals into the Hollow Earth. He was in there, and that's why he maybe knows a little bit more about it. So depending on what the Axis Mundi does, and we got a lot of... I think, rightful corrections about what time dilation means in terms of gravity, in terms of the axis mundi. And then the show is like, well, maybe season 2 is going to redefine all of that for us. And I guess I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Cut to the singing bowls in 2017 as we are at Hiroshi's funeral, where very young-looking mother Keiko and actually young daughter Kate put his ashes in the family grave. Is there a John Goodman placeholder in there? Do you put Bill Randa in the Randa grave even though his body never came back because it's in the stomach of a skull crusher?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, where is Bill Randa buried, do you think? Or like, does he have a gravestone somewhere?
I mean, it's gotta be there, I would assume, if anywhere. If that's the Randa grave. I don't know who else Hiroshi would be buried with in Japan. There's definitely somebody else's ashes in there.
I mean, or his birth father, or his biological
original
father.
Kentaro.
Yeah, Kentaro 1.
Yeah, Kentaro 1. Interesting. Old Lee Shaw is also there with Emiko, Kentaro's mother, and Lee's old nurse. Just to remind yourself, because we are going to be reminding ourselves about a lot what happened in season 1 this episode. Lee is surprised to see an actor with old age makeup there and says Zook. But luckily, I had Googled Dr. Suzuki last week because he and his Titan phone from season 1, episode 4's Parallels and Interiors was in the episode description.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you should be listening to The Storm for reminders that Dr. Suzuki exists.
Sure.
Kentaro yells at Kate for getting too close to Titan X, that of course Hiroshi would run out to save her. Kate says she can't control it and something is happening to her. Then Kentaro blames Kate for Titan X's existence and says they're all just waiting for Godzilla to come clean up their mess, which is the beginning of the plant for the climax of this episode. We went several weeks without really talking about Godzilla to suddenly the show remembers that Godzilla is out there and that technically we've had it on our Storm of Spoilers logo every week, despite him not being in the show.
The show remembers and then restates the plot. Classic 21st century TV thing. Restates the entire premise of any Godzilla thing, which is Godzilla will eventually show up to not only save us, but clean up the mess that humanity has made.
Mm-hmm. And we know he will in the future anyway, and that humanity, sure, all happens. So why not this time?
Yeah.
Old Dr. Suzuki meets young Keiko and reveals that Hiroshi is kept in touch after Keiko and Lee disappeared. Old Shaw makes an excuse to go up to Dr. Suzuki's house, and they suggest they all go over for a drink. Old Shaw gives his switchblade back to Hiroshi and tells him to take care of it again, like we saw with Kid Hiroshi and Young Shaw in season 1, before Young Shaw disappeared into Project Hourglass, which is also Dr. Suzuki was there.
Mm-hmm.
In 1958, Washington, D.C., Keiko has a bigger office at Monarch headquarters than Bill Randa. They're setting up offices because at this point, they don't know when Titan X is going to show up again. Young Shaw shows up to tell them that he's being reassigned to the general's cabinet and won't be working at Monarch, and that he has like a whole martini before he leaves, just so we know that he really is drinking at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the TV show is about as subtle as it needs to be with some of this stuff, but I am going to point out how they hit the nail on the head with all of it. Like, not a subtle TV show, Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
Sure.
In 2017 Japan, Mei shows up at Kentaro's apartment and says she didn't want to crash the funeral. Kentaro doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to drink. In 1958, young Lee Shaw shows up at a superior's office, but it isn't just any superior, it's Daddy Shaw, who he hasn't seen in 5 years. This show is like, well, if Hiroshi's dead, you know what? We're down one. We're down one bad dad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Daddy Shaw convinces the son. Daddy Shaw I just like developed a lisp in the middle of the recap. Daddy Shaw convinces his son to start drinking and susses out that he left his previous post at Monarch because he hooked up with a coworker who was in love with the second smartest person he knows. Daddy Shaw accurately pinpoints that young Shaw got out of the way, and the two talk about honor as Lee begins to drink way too much.
Sure. So not only has this episode in record time, not so subtly established sort of the height of Lee's drinking problem, but also maybe the source of Lee's drinking problem, which is his bad father.
This is maybe we'll bring it up. No, we'll wait till it comes up in our main 2017 plotline. But I am wondering what this show says by accident by telling two stories that involve drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because, right, Kentaro's story also involves drinking, but like responsibly handled, except by one new star of the show, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess, you know, drunkenly kissing your friend. I don't know how responsible you think that is, Neil, but it happens.
Sure.
And they seem like they deal with it. But then also the 1958 storyline is very much drinking is bad and is sort of like poisoning as much generationally as maybe his liver.
Yeah. Well, and it's like not only is he like encouraging him to drink, but he's also like trying to ship him off to Vietnam. This is bad news.
Oh, we'll get there, Neil. Hold on. We're still dealing with this drinking.
That's true.
He's Fugazi because
we're only at level 1 of bad dadness.
Well, and like in 2017, they treat this like a reveal because in the back story, we have to deal with Shaw dealing with his father. Because in 2017, we're at Dr. Suzuki's house having sake. Though if you check out after watching the episode the first time, Lee is not drinking. And Zook is talking about how Project Hourglass failed and Monarch cut him off from his research. But Hiroshi and him had been working on rebuilding his Titan phone device in secret, accounting for time dilation. Old Shaw dumps.
I have a quick question though. While we're at Suzuki's house, how do we feel about?
I mean, we're going to be there for a long time, but yes.
How do we feel about the aged up makeup?
Bad.
It's a little distracting. I'm going to be honest. And listen, I don't need Apple to spend a bunch of money aging people up or down. And I know that they're putting more effort maybe into the Russells when they need to age them in any direction. But this one was kind of distracting. Poor Leo Ashizawa, who plays Dr. Suzuki, just sort of looks like he's wearing a mask.
If it wasn't for the conversation we had about Hiroshi's actor and his 1990 look being suspiciously just kind of beardless, I would say that it's almost a race problem because they do the white people aging really, really well. But for a story that has such a large Asian or non-white cast, that aging so far has, at least in this episode, not done great. Or maybe it is, you just sit him next to Kurt Russell and it's like obvious that the old one is the Kurt Russell one. You just can't, you know, act away a certain degree of...
I guess that's true. I mean, Kurt Russell has aged so well, he's going to make any aging up effect look bad.
I mean, he's going to make it look bad, but also it's like, that's like on one side is the best possible way you can age. And on the other side is like somebody's attempt at like a really good aging, because ultimately the hard part about old age makeup on like a young person is you're kind of guessing like what parts of them are gonna sag and like, what parts of them are gonna become quote unquote old. And the weird part about Kurt Russell is you look at him and you look at his son and you're just like, nothing really gets old. It just sort of like the skin gets more leathery, but like it's sort of the same anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he still looks like Snake Plissken.
Still looks like Snake Plissken. Doesn't need to be sat next to somebody with old age makeup. Does not do any favor for the old age makeup, that's for sure. Old Shaw dumps out the sake in a point of view shot from a sink that we never see. Jesus, Monarch, make this easy on me. Just like visual language. I'm like, is he pouring it on the ground? Is he pouring himself a huge thing, a huge glass?
Sure. Yeah. At first I was like, is this a bottom of the glass POV shot? I didn't even register as sink until he turns around and is like, this one's empty. And I was like, oh, he just poured that away. I thought,
and you could kind of see the sink, but he's standing in front of it. And then they cut to him setting the bottle down and they don't put the sink in focus. I'm just like,
and
you have to show me the geography of what's happening here.
This is, I think, maybe one of my greater criticisms of this episode overall is there are several sequences that are just like confusingly edited. The funeral sequence at the beginning that we have already kind of gone through also has some just like interesting cuts, like some like, why are we cutting back and forth like this? I honestly just think the editors are bored on this show right now.
It seems like it, but also the editors seem to be the only ones trying to like drive the themes of the story forward. like all the stuff that we're second screening is all the Godzilla phone nonsense, which I understand why you have to every scene talk about. We're about to get into it, what we're doing with this Godzilla device. But it's also really odd that like the father stuff and the booze stuff is all based on like match cuts, like insinuations between the montage of actual scenes.
Mhm.
So to a certain degree, the editors are the ones communicating story, I think, more effectively. But then something like this happens, and I'm just like, did you guys just think that was a really cool shot, but then never think that I wouldn't know where he was pouring it into?
Mhm.
For all I know, Lee just pours it on the ground, like right in front of
Sure.
Suzuki, and he's like, anyway.
A real one for my homies moment for Lee Shaw.
Just as a reminder, young Lee wakes up in the past having drank too much because, again, the editors have to tell the story, and late for his first day with the general, or so he thinks. Instead, he finds his high-ranking father, who forces him to come to breakfast. In 2017, Tokyo, Mei and Kentaro return to Sota's, the bar, also from season 1's Parallels and Interiors, except the old owner sold the place to some sort of trendy cocktail cereal location. They have some fancy-looking whiskey sours made instantly and toast to Hiroshi.
Sure. And there are children running around. So it's like a family establishment as well.
Oh, that's a good point. I did clock the children, but I also didn't think to like.
It very
really
much
mention
read
it,
as
but-
like he sold it and they turned it into like the Japanese version of a Chili's.
I mean, absolutely, because there seems to be no like very few actual Japanese people here, as
Sure.
we will know. Like they're
And,
definitely
like,
working there, but
That's just sort of like the face that Kentaro and Mei make about the whole situation, which is like, oh, this has been like gentrified.
yeah. But it's also really funny because we'll get there later. Just in terms of its clientele, somebody really unexpected who I would not expect to see in Tokyo shows up. Outside Dr. Suzuki's, the Zook reveals that Lee has been sober for years, and Old Shaw says he wants to use the rebuilt Titan phone to call Godzilla to fight Titan X if they have to. It turns out the difference in this new phone is that it was made knowing about the time dilation. So in order to track and call Godzilla, they have to know where they last saw Godzilla, which I believe, Neil, is in season 1, 2015 in Africa. And that's where they first come across Hiroshi because he's come out of the portal.
Mm-hmm.
But the second they show up, Godzilla comes out of a mountain portal and then looks at Kate and then pieces off back down into the Axis Mundi.
Sure. And do you think
As far as I know,
Godzilla like following Hiroshi out of the Axis Mundi just to make sure he gets out safely? And then it's like, all right, you're good. Bye.
I believe that the thing that they haven't talked about this season, but was a big deal the first season, is sort of like stabilizing a portal. Used to be you had to bring a Titan through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe he got out because Godzilla was like in the portal, and that was like a big enough force to allow
Sure.
Hiroshi to get sucked out.
And closing
We
it
didn't
was
know
just
he was in
you
there.
blew it up and it closed.
I mean, we didn't know he was like in there in the first place in season 1 when we caught up with him.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we know that's where he came out, and now that we saw him there with Godzilla, and season 1 was so much about using the Titan to establish the portal, my guess is that was how Hiroshi got out. But again, we don't see any of him filling in his backstory in season 1 because by the time Hiroshi like joins up with the effort, Kate and Shaw are already in the Axis Mundi, and that's what we're concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Back at the bar, Mei recounts how her and Kentaro ended up bonding in Tokyo over Back to the Future, but Kentaro thinks that's a good time to go in for a kiss. Mei pushes him away, and Kentaro is like, oh, I'm the wrong Randa, and you're into my sister. Mei does the most responsible relationship thing anyone has done in the show this so far, and is just like, no hard feelings, peace out, I'll call you tomorrow. I love it.
I mean, first of all, shout out to Mei for making good decisions, but also, again, really multiple good examples in this scene of the show not being at all subtle, right? Like Kentaro's entire deal here is very not subtle about like, oh, you're into my sister. It's like, all right, well, we've been watching this love triangle not be subtle for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Back to the Future thing, which is like, we're doing time dilation, we're doing time travel. This is very on the nose. for them to be discussing Back to the Future and for that to be almost immediately relevant to the general plot of the show.
Well, guess what? Just as May leaves, Amber fucking Midthunder enters in and slides up to him. And I'm thinking, do all the hot North American women come to this one shitty bar? If I'm just in Tokyo and I want to have a drink, it's just, hey, guess what? Over here.
This is the spot.
It's the spot. I believe she is also canonically hot North American, though I think her ethnicity is different. We're going to find out a little bit later in the episode.
Sure.
On the rural Japanese docks, Keiko talks about the light from the stars and hoping her sun shines to her, and her granddaughter, Kate, dips her feet in the water and begins receiving that signal/song from Titan X that has been alluded to this whole season. Luckily, they're at a mad scientist's house, and so they go to retrofit some equipment and come across Zook and Old Shaw loading the new Titan phone to an adorable little truck. They're headed to Mount Asore, where Shaw was spit out of the Axis Mundi in 1982 to test the capabilities, quote unquote, and kind of open a portal to the Axis Mundi to try and find Godzilla. Old Shaw says they have a Godzilla who is the biggest, baddest dog in the fight, and the women are very against dogfighting. Old Shaw says it's us versus them, and the only thing that matters is who wins, which is something we will hear his dad say in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
First, we have to go back to the bar where Amber Midthunder takes the initiative and puts her number into Kataro's phone. When Kataro brings up Titan theory based on old G-Day footage, a drunk Amber lets slip that she knows Kentaro has faced a Titan before. She is Isabel, Walter Simmons' other daughter, not Maya, who we saw working with their father for Apex and Godzilla vs. Kong. Neil, we did it. We finally got to Walter Simmons, sort of.
Yep. Listen, I hope Walter Simmons has many daughters, because now he has one played by Isa Gonzalez and one played by Amber Midthunder. This is a very attractive family, very attractive but ethnically ambiguous family.
Mm-hmm.
The Simmons family, and I guess this does. I think we talked about in the Storm last week. My rough theory that Walter Simmons, Damian Bashir, could be our cameo. If we're going to get a movie cameo on this show, this gets us one step closer. At least he gets a mention here. So, but also, just generally happy to have Amber Midthunder on board. She's great. Like, she's been in a lot of stuff that I really enjoy. And she's been really good in some stuff that I did not otherwise enjoy as well.
I'm excited to see what happens with this character, because she's on a team that I don't think I like, but I really do like this performance of hers, and I can't tell if it's nefarious or not.
Sure.
Because of how she introduces herself.
Yeah, and we've also kind of been in this bubble of curiosity around Apex, where our knowledge of where Apex's arc as an entity goes is that this should be a period where they start kind of winning, right? Like, we know it goes kind of poorly later. Their hubris gets the best of them, as it does many a corporation, in fiction only, for some reason. But like, this actually is, we're witnessing sort of the rise of Apex, alongside Monarch's mission. So I think my guess would be that this is another potentially successful method of Apex drawing the Randa family in, and that she will spell trouble for our heroes.
We should have seen it coming that Apex was going to come in with a legacy character in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, because all these CEOs be reproducing much more than we think, as far as we've learned on this show.
For sure.
Isabel thinks Kentaro doesn't want Monarch, or worse, Kate, which, okay, harsh, taking over the situation, but Kentaro's had a long day and has to go dream our climax, so he leaves. In the past, Daddy Shaw reveals to young Lee that he's had him reassigned to fucking Vietnam in 1958.
Yeah.
Daddy Shaw yells at young Lee about how Daddy Shaw watched his career pass him by and leads to honor and combat and blah, blah, blah. But according to Dad, Monarch's research has nothing to show for itself because ultimately it's us versus them. And the only thing that matters in the end is who wins. What a time to go to Vietnam, Neil.
Sure. What a thing to say before you're about to try to send your son to Vietnam, especially because we historically do not win in Vietnam.
Well, in 1958, it's just a place of a lot of war opportunities now that, the French have rearranged their holdings. In 2017, old Lee realizes he's being kind of an asshole while presumably remembering his dad, because again, the editing is kind of telling the story in this point. Because no one's like, oh my God, my dad said that.
Mhm.
When Zook wonders if their test could actually release Godzilla, setting up the climax again, because here it is. In a dream, Kentaro is walking home through the streets of Tokyo when multiple Titan alerts go off. We see the angry pink Titan X spikes approaching the city from the water. Everyone is calmly wandering through the streets. Good idea, this might be a dream. When Kentaro happens across Emiko, his mother. Good, another idea, there might be a dream.
Very convenient.
Then a shipping container flies through the air as everyone looks up to behold Godzilla in Tokyo. It's happening. You can see this clip for free on YouTube now, even if you don't have Apple TV Plus, because Apple TV knows it's happening and that maybe you'll start watching this show. Everyone starts running away, and Kentaro and his mom happen across May, who is still out and about because maybe this is a dream. Missiles fire at Godzilla, and Kentaro meets the final influential woman in his dream life, Kate, who says, I tried to tell you, it doesn't want to harm us. Then Godzilla turns as Titan X approaches, and his tail is going to kill Kentaro and all the women in his life. When Kentaro wakes up, he leaves the room and hugs his mother. How did this sequence work for you, Neil?
It's a mixed bag because I would say it's a 25% eye roll, like, oh God, we're really doing it this way. And a 75% I'll take it because we've been waiting fucking like 6 weeks for Godzilla and he's finally here. And honestly, he looks pretty good. And we're doing, people running through the streets of Tokyo away from Godzilla. That's fun. That's some of his most iconic work is done in that style. So not terrible. The dream sequenceness of it is fine, I guess. And but it was very quickly obvious to me that it was not actually really happening because I was like, wait a second, this would break some canon if this was really happening because there's no canonical evidence that Godzilla destroyed Tokyo at any point. And then, some of the convenient things like the mom showing up and then Kate's very calm and weird dialogue that she delivers. So I'm okay with it because again, when you're out in the desert and you're so thirsty, any water will do, even if it's a little dirty.
I think that for an episode about Kentaro's switch to maybe be on Team Apex, this is an interesting solution to the problem I was saying, where that they have to have some monsters every episode. So do you build an entire storyline around the monsters? And I sort of feel like Kentaro has a series of experiences where he is constantly bringing up Godzilla for the first time in 2 years, 3 years, and to sort of like lead us to this dream sequence, which is fine. I don't feel it too much. Again, you bring in Amber Midthunter, and I'm like, great, we'll deal with it.
Well, I will say this episode for the first time is making me want to do like a kind of a Kentaro antagonist arc check-in.
All right,
because I do feel like the show is starting to move him in the direction of being sort of on the opposite side, where like the show is very clearly positioning Kate to be more sympathetic to the monster, right? Specifically Titan X, to have a connection with Titan X. Like she literally very unsubtly says it in his dream, like they're not here to hurt us. And so Kate is going to be in the, we should not be trying to use technology or anything like that to control these Titans camp. Whereas I think Kentaro, they're positioning him not only to be receiving the pitch from Apex from Amber Midthunder's character, but also now that he has lost his father, who he had some special time with for 2 years, he's going to be more open to that pitch. And I do think that this season, we don't really know where this season is going to like close and if there is a plan for another season, but it would be interesting to me if they either end this season or get to the climax of this season trying to put the siblings on the opposite sides of the coin, right? Like put the siblings at odds with each other over what we should do about the monsters. And honestly, that is more interesting than the conflict that they've had so far, which is just like,
right,
we're both kind of don't like each other because we both think that our dad loved the other one more than me. So I think
and then he made the mistake of dying in one's arms and not both arms. How dare he?
When in reality, they should both just be like mad at their dad for not, for being a liar. So sure, this is fun. It gives Kate and Kentaro more to do if they're going to have this larger existential argument over whether or not the monsters are good or not.
In the past, Shaw lives up in a room, presumably in Vietnam. The military advisor's suite has a broken lamp, which is the breaking point, literally because young Lee smashes the lamp. He's getting out of there. At Hiroshi's grave, Kentaro mourns and then calls Isabel, taking her up on her offer. So we're going to see what Isabel has to say, presumably next week. Back at the Japanese docks, Keiko has scienced hard overnight, apparently, because it is dawn and she is ready to take care of some readings and recordings of Kate as she dips underwater. As Kate emerges, she identifies that the Titan X signal means that it is lost and panicked, is what she reads from the shriekings of recordings, which is just subtitled as shriekings. So Kate still has some sort of connection where she's like a little bit deeper than just receiving a signal. So she's a little bit more than antenna, but it does seem like if we are to believe Kate, Titan X might just be looking for its hole too. It might just be looking for the hole again,
I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's like, what evidence, what story evidence have they given us to explain why Titan X is freaked out? It's either that it can't find its proper entrance back into the Axis Mundi, or as their poorly mathed explanation says, it's like off of its timeline. Or I guess maybe it's what they tried to do to it messed it up a little bit, right? With the little
it did have to sever one of its tentacle parts.
Yeah, so like that would make me a little anxious, I guess.
Oh yeah. In the past, Young Lee rejoins Keiko at Monarch. They look at a map of Kazakhstan, which I think means we've effectively arced out what we know about Young Lee, because going to Kazakhstan is where Keiko falls into the hole, and we sort of know what happens to Lee after that, going into Project Hourglass, etc. At Mount Asore, Zook tells Shaw he has to get kind of close to the portal to get the readings needed. And reluctant Shaw is nevertheless excited when a portal to the Axis Mundi seems to open, and he reaches out towards a particular vertical flash of light that Zook seems to have not seen. Zook says his readings don't make sense as a transmission comes over Shaw's radio. It's a Mayday signal from his younger self, Major Lee Shaw, from the past. And that's where we're going to leave this week's episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
Sure. And we are left with questions about what are the time travel rules here.
Yeah.
Because I think so Lee Shaw went in Project Hourglass into the Axis Mundi. And then he came back out as Kurt Russell. He went in as Wyatt Russell, comes out as Kurt. And now he has reopened. They just opened a portal, and he was just sort of like near it, and he seems to have maybe touched it a little bit. And that, as far as I can tell, Dave, seems to have maybe copied him.
Mm.
Right. And this, we talked about this crazy theory in the storm last week that was going around on social media that I thought was fun, that Elder Shaw, the Kurt version, was going to mess around with time travel and somehow either negate the plot of season 2 or try to go back and change something, and in some way was going to end up sharing the screen with his son as the two Lee Shaws were on screen together. And this came from an interview where Kurt Russell sort of suggested that was going to happen, that they would eventually appear on screen together, he and his son. So here we are. Here's the pathway, but I didn't calculate for it being like somehow the timey-wimey dilation of the Axis Mundi is able to pull him out twice. Right, because that, like, if young Shaw comes out of that portal, now we got two Shaws. Or if old Shaw goes into the portal and finds young Shaw in Axis Mundi, we still have two Shaws at that point.
I really want to see if he's able to communicate with this person more than just like ask his name, because if it is like a back and forth, I do have questions.
Sure.
I do think we could say that this is maybe more related to Dr. Suzuki's technology than the Axis Mundi, because that's the commonality between these two entrance points.
Sure.
So maybe we're not blowing up the Monsterverse
Sure.
by saying like the Hollow Earth is also just a prehistoric Earth. It was just time. We just fell through time. Like,
Amazing.
I don't know if we need to go there necessarily.
But listen, this is a really tricky territory for the show to be going into, because as someone who has watched many and read and listened to and experienced many fictional accounts of time travel or fictional depictions of time travel, one of the most common rules at the very top of the list is always don't interact with yourself.
Right.
If you're time traveling, because that could screw up the quantum mechanics of the universe and maybe negate all time and space existence in general. So talking over the radio is one thing, but being together in the same physical space feels like a real danger.
I do think it's interesting that
but like
there's
a plot danger as well, like for the show to have to explain.
Yes, but also something that has to explain that is much less visually effects based. I do feel like this is a way for the show to boot up something cool about this universe that doesn't require Titans.
True.
Or Skull Island. Like, oh, hey, we get a timey-wimey thing. Great. One quote unquote bottle episode with like doubles, it's something that could be a possibility.
Sure.
It's a new like sci-fi page.
And you don't even need to digitally duplicate anyone, because you already have two Russells.
Very, very true. And so many generations and so many, legacy characters, pun intended. Big week for Titan Watch, Neil. We get Kong, Godzilla, we get Titan X, and we also get the Velocigrasters, which have a real name, but not better than that. That to me, they don't.
Sure.
And luckily for our body count, I don't think any real bodies were dropped this week.
And potentially
maybe some dream bodies.
Potentially through time travel, we may have created a second Lee Shaw. So
yeah, also very, very interesting.
Could be +1 on the body count.
The only thing I'm adding to the timeline is in 1958, the Monarch Washington, D.C. office is established. It is interesting that they're burning through these like 1 year at a time. So like 57, Titan X, 58, DC office, 59, Keiko's lost in Kazakhstan. So I don't know how much time really has passed in between the scenes that we get of Young Lee in this episode. But I think they all take place in 1958. So we're just going to pretend that until I'm told otherwise.
Sure. And it does suggest that they're kind of getting close to the end of the flashback arc.
Right.
Which is, I guess, maybe one of the reasons why you would create another excuse to continue to have Wyatt Russell on the show, right? Because they've already found plenty of story reasons to keep Mary Yamamoto, who plays Keiko, on the show. She's now in the main timeline, but it's
and we did montage through like a decade of Bill Randa's life that we could still revisit in a future season.
His story kind of came with a preset hard end point.
Yes.
From a movie that already exists that you can't mess with. So like the show's, I guess, thing that it had to weave through is how do we keep Wyatt Russell on the show if we get to a season 3, especially if maybe Kurt Russell doesn't want to come back for a 3rd season.
They're also giving Wyatt Russell potentially a spin-off of his like 1980s time. So I would have assumed that you arc him out and you just like let that happen.
Sure.
But maybe they are still going to do that. But now that's my question for season 2 is this we let go our little Russell family gimmick and try to stand on our own 2 feet, or is the Russell family gimmick something that's important to Monarch Legacy of Monsters?
Mm-hmm.
Guess we'll have to find out. Neil, anything else you want to talk about in the column before we talk about what episode 7 holds?
Hopefully this isn't this is only a taste, an appetizer of Godzilla nonsense coming, but I think we pretty much covered it.
All right, then let's move into the storm and talk about some armchair physics. All right, Neil, it is storm time. Next week is episode 7, String Theory. What do you know about string theory, Neil?
It's a theoretical framework.
Mm-hmm.
It's a physics thing, right? String theory.
It is a physics thing, yes.
And it is often brought up in time travel stuff. It involves the theory of relativity, if I recall correctly. It is related to space-time and quantum mechanics. And, honestly, this is not an area where I have a ton of expertise. I just know that it pops up a lot in my time travel stuff.
It does. The string theory as it exists is sort of based around this idea that at a certain molecular level, you could either like sort of tell how much charge or speed I believe an electron has, but not where it is, or you could tell where it is, but not what a charge. And this whole idea that I think also becomes more complex, but I think they call it like the Higgs boson condensate, where they take like a super greased bowl and they shoot a proton into it, and the bowl starts to like take the proton, and it sort of like does like a skateboarder. It's just riding the bowl up and down. But at the peaks before it falls back down, if you take like a electron microscope and look at that, it stops being a particle and it becomes a wave. So it became this whole idea to people like, what if all particles are just waves? And what if everything that we see that makes up our world is actually the vibration of these strings? String theory. So instead of things being made up by particles, they're made up by vibrations. But if you apply this to physics at the subatomic level, it basically is the same sort of idea that not only can you not tell where a proton is or how much charge it is, but that proton might be able to move instantly, to teleport. Maybe there's an entire other dimension that those protons can teleport to. So we're sharing mass with dimensions we can't see.
Sure.
All of these things. So string theory sort of leads to
it could
the
teleport
multiverse
throughout space and time.
You could teleport throughout space and time. You could teleport to other universes. But this whole idea that we are a bunch of vibrations, it's interesting. I don't think it's necessarily provable, but I think it is great.
We're all just vibes, baby.
Yeah, we're all just vibes. I think it's great in a storytelling thing, and it is great for the great hope of Storm of Spoilers for Monarch: A Legacy of Monsters Season 2 is this season's about something.
Mm-hmm.
Which, because we've been getting the vibrations, right? And that's sort of like string theory. And now we're going to get like maybe multiple versions of certain characters. And because the Axis Mundi is allowed to like transfer particles through different states of being. And so therefore you can create another Lee Shaw or transfer his vibes into a different time period. I just really hope
Sure.
that they close it off or connect it, because that is a really weird thing to do in the Godzilla universe, I think.
Yeah. I mean, or at the very least, they're going to use it to try and explain how the events of the show can exist alongside pre-existing movies where none of the characters in this show are referenced.
Yes, that is also very possible.
Because,
so
they're getting close to where that is going to become a problem.
I just think if this is like an end game for that, and you are on episode 7 of your 10 episode series, you have brought it up too late. But again, I can't wait to be proved wrong. The official description for string theory is Shaw receives an impossible radio transmission. Kate and Keiko uncover an ancient link to Titan X. Isabel has a proposition for Kentaro. I don't see really anything in that description that didn't happen this episode, except Ancient Link necessarily.
Sure.
So what do you think that's going to be?
Well, I mean, hopefully it's a deeper explanation as to what is going on with the Randa family, specifically the women in the Randa family having a link to Titan X. It would be fun if there is some kind of clever reason why they're the ones who can vibe with Titan X and everyone else can't even necessarily hear it. So yeah, I mean, is it a DNA thing? Is it time travel related as well? Because they went into the Axis Mundi, did something spread out across space time that allowed them to, I don't know, did like some of their DNA get like shot back in time and it eventually remorphed into their family lineage?
Their 1/100th scarab.
Yeah.
Just way back on their 23.
Something like that. I'm open to whatever the show wants to come up with, and we'll see if it's interesting. The last part, of course, the Isabel having a proposition for Kentaro, I think is very interesting to me because, again, Kentaro Antagonist Check-In time. Let's see if he goes to the dark side and can be lured by Amber Midthunder, because I think that this episode did a very not so subtle job of pushing him in that direction. And I think that especially as we're getting, this is going to be the 7th episode, we're getting closer to our run up to the climax of this season. Maybe that climax involves a confrontation between the two siblings because of the way that they're being positioned. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that with Kentaro, who I would say is a character that I'm not always necessarily on the same side with, right? Like,
right.
As he was sort of being like a little shit about his sister this week, I was like, I kind of don't like Kentaro sometimes. Like, he's kind of unreasonable about the whole thing. Like, he's unreasonably antagonistic to his half sister, where he should have been more directing that anger towards his father. Right. So I think that he is now compounded that with his perception of his relationship with May also falling apart because of his sister. So it'll be interesting to see how easily he goes, deeper into that antagonist territory.
Absolutely. In the real world, people grieve in all sorts of crazy ways. It wouldn't like go into a shitty Japanese whiskey bar. Makes a lot of sense to me. In the world of the show, you are absolutely right that they're giving us a whole bunch of flags. I just can't tell if it's the flags that Kentaro is going to like become part of Apex and take a, opposition position to Kate, or if it's going to be he like realizes something at the grave, because we mostly had to set up the Godzilla dream sequence. Like there are two readings of this show. Like how we started the show, we're probably going to end the storm this way. The show could be smart and just poorly paced, or it could be just as dumb as we're accusing it to be. We kind of need to keep watching to find out.
Sure.
And
luckily
we are.
Oddly enough, and maybe this is the ultimate advantage that this production is working with, it kind of doesn't matter what the answer is, as long as the Titan shit at the end is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing with the Godzilla property, is that as long as the big fight at the end is cool, the human plot can be super dumb.
I have put up with cockroaches running an amusement park in this franchise. This is not as dumb as it could possibly get. Yeah. Absolutely.
So like, it's like, it doesn't matter that much.
Well, Neil, we're going to have to find out next week, but we still have some podcasts left this week.
Hell
so
yeah,
join me, won't you, as we enter the world of Godzilla Awakening.
This alpha predator of yours, Doctor. Do you really think he has a chance?
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Okie dokie, we are back with Godzilla Awakening. This is a roughly RPG game where Neil has been describing and rolling dice to make his own Godzilla movie. Godzilla Awakening, it is a prequel to all of the MonsterVerse Godzilla series, but will be coming out, he hopes, before Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019. We are in production in 2018. We're doing pretty good on the schedule. I believe we're probably in May at this point. You are halfway through production. This week, we are going to begin with a modifier encounter. This is another email from Phelan, and based on this, you will get some help in this week's 3 encounters. The 3 encounters will be the sea, as we follow your Vikings into the sea that eventually brings them to the Monster Island, as we discussed way back when we were discussing the script and the story. We have encounter 2. This is the Godzilla's Ice Mountain. So Anya Taylor-Joy, after Mads has gone down in the Act 2 battle, decides to take his mission and climb the ice mountain, where they fight some ice spiders, and they throw a nuclear device into the middle of the volcano. And then encounter 3 is going to be Lapita Nyong'o week, as you do a lot of your lore and your lore conversations and bring back sort of your key cast to lay down, I think, the story of this movie. And originally I had Lapita Nyong'o week coming up in encounter 1, but then we got this email from Phelan, and I thought this would be an interesting way for you to tweak the story of Godzilla Awakening in the middle of production, which is something that happens all the time on films. Neil, what from this email of Phelan would you like to read to the audience? This is not your interpretation of it. Just what of it, if any of it, do you need to read?
Sure. Well, and listen, we greatly appreciate Phelan's depth of knowledge here. That's why we've welcomed him into the executive producer team here on Godzilla Awakening. And because something I didn't consider as we were doing our pre-production pitch is how much Norse mythology we wanted to inject into this movie. I was obviously really trying to do whatever I could to get Toho on board, right? So like I almost soft selling the whole Viking thing, where it's just like, if we wanted to change them to other kinds of warriors, we could if we had to. So now that everybody's on board, we may dig a little bit deeper. So here are a couple of things that Phelan mentioned that I like. First, If all the kaiju are seen as actors from Norse mythology because of his association with the rising from the sea, Godzilla could be seen as Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. I've met him in God of War, by the way. In addition to being one of the most awesomely powerful forces in Norse mythology, he's a useful and respected monster, as his role is to encircle the world, preventing the oceans from washing away, unlike Nidhogg, who's purely antagonist. Early on, you said that Rune is motivated by challenging the gods, as Ragnarok is the death of the gods and birth of the new age. I would decide if he's trying to prevent it or incite it. Either means he's a devout believer, but why does he want to kill the gods? Is it the death of Thyra's mother? Amazing. A dead wife trope, like very Christopher Nolan of us. What does Thyra think? Does she have any belief in the gods? Does seeing giant monsters and the signs of Ragnarok change that for her? Maybe just a sprinkle more which religion is right. Love this. When you mentioned the squirrel totem passing between characters, the role of a minuscule being motivating giant monsters to fight, and a surprise return of our big-ass Viking warrior, I was inspired. I remembered another player in the Ratatasker lore, Vedrfolnir. This is a lot. Is the hawk that sits between the eyes of the giant eagle. He serves a similar role as Odin's ravens, gathering wisdom and serving as witness for the eagle. Vedrfolnir means storm pale or wind witherer, as he's associated with extreme winds from atop the world tree. We do have some extreme winds in our story atop a very icy mountain. Phelan goes on, I had a passing thought about your Romans having a scuttled warship with a ballista mounted to it, and Thyra using a poison-tipped ballista bolt to help Godzilla win the final fight, being inspired by pieces of Rune's Ragnarok stories of Thor and Baldur's death. But that's a really long setup, and I'll let Anya Taylor-Joy speak for herself. I really like this as well. Get the Romans involved. And then one last thought from Phelan. Your final scene, if Thyra leaves the island, you said no reverse time travel. Your last shot, maybe post credits, has to be a befuddled fisherman watching a war-torn Viking longboat sail into a dock at a modern pier or beach, and our heroes disembarking onto a strange new world. Tell me that doesn't beg for a sequel. It's also it also subtly plays with the myth of Einherjar, the dead Viking warriors chosen for Valhalla who fight, die, and are reborn every day for eternity. I have I would like to +1 this final idea as well.
Okay.
Because I like this as a post-credits scene, but I would like it even more if they not only dock on a modern port and are very confused, but if right as they dock, a very loud siren starts to go off for a Titan alert. Like they've not only have they come into modern times, but they've come into the plot of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, as I understand it, being produced. So that they could, if Legendary so chooses, they could cameo in the movie. And if this is a huge hit, Anya Taylor-Joy, franchise superstar is all I'm saying. And I'm sure she would very much enjoy those paychecks. But I really do. I like all of these ideas. I think that most of this can be weaved into campfire speeches from Mads and his character. I think that a lot of it is just the interpretation that the Vikings are having of these events, right? Like we could
massage it in through dialogue,
right? And obviously Godzilla isn't Jormungandr. He's Godzilla, and the audience it's okay that the audience knows that, but ancient Vikings can believe that. That's fine with me. That can propel them. I do like the dead mother thing as a impetus for why Rune is doing what he's doing. I like the sort of switch up for Thyra, as in she's not as devout as her father, and maybe this is a point of tension early in the film. But it is her change in belief that ultimately saves the day at the end. You know, like her love for her father overcoming her skepticism that allows her to finish the mission. That even though we as the audience know she's not participating in Ragnarok necessarily, that his belief reverberating down through her is what saves their people. Is I think a powerful enough message for people to get behind. So yeah, I like that. I think that's good. And sure, why not? Giant eagle. Somebody could mention the giant eagle. We don't have to have a giant eagle.
I like that, but I do like these.
Him.
So what we're going to do here is you've expressed this to your writer, Dave, and he's going to have some time to go and do some rewrites as you are working on some early Act 1 sequences. So your choices for roles for this will be a leadership of 5 or a creativity of 12. Creativity has gone down because I really liked what you said, and you managed to connect back to the franchise with the end credit scene. So you kind of yes-anded Phelan's email, I think, in a very good way.
Awesome.
Leadership, you could also just muscle through, but it will be a little bit of a tougher role. Extreme success here awards a crew die, in that your writer is going to come through for you and will provide a bonus where he just wrote your intention very good on one of your future roles. A failure award rewards a failure awards you a penalty D4 die that will be taken off of your roll, and that has to be used during Lapita Nyong'o week.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's just like you try
penalty.
You try to get the movie to work and you change it midway through, and the last week with your big star who has to do all this exposition, she'll like see right through it, and it's going to be a little bit tougher for you.
She's very smart. We're not going to be able to get much by her.
So we got a leadership role where you have to beat or exceed 5, or a creativity role where you have to beat or exceed 12. Wow. And your leadership is a D6 die plus 1 modifier, and your creativity is your strongest with your D20 die.
That's true. But listen, the leadership roles were really working. The leadership and experience roles with the bonuses.
I've had to be making them harder because I think I unbalanced your leadership roles last time.
Very strong, but you're tempting me with this low creativity roll. 12 is gettable, man.
Yeah.
So I think let's roll creativity. Let's play with fire a little bit here.
All right.
Gotta bust that D20 out at some point.
Roll for more Norse mythology. That is an 18. I'm going to say that's an extreme success.
That feels like an extreme success.
So 18 on a 12. That is almost a perfect success. I'm going to give you a D6 crew die for your bonus. So we'll throw it over here. Instead of your lost tokens, it's going to say D6 crew
Screenwriter
die.
Dave might be my best hire so far.
Screenwriter Dave has been working really well. Or the dice certainly like him as much as you do. All right. On the sea, we are, you built some longboats in a tank. This is one of the sets you built. Because you took the design time and are shooting these in the second half of the production, you have some pretty great underwater LEDs to provide some lighting for the magical lights, maybe of Tiamat, whatever, under the water. And you have a series of lights built over the tank that not only provide dramatic storm lighting, but will turn on visual markers so your actors are all looking at the same place when the flashes of the Titan Baphomet in the storm above flash. You hit the previs roll specifically on the mark, so you don't have anything in additional to that. You should have everything you need story-wise in order to do it.
Got it.
Just as a reminder is where you are in the story. They've faced the big man with the lion head. His Viking clan sort of flees to the sea. our Viking clan joins them. This is the longboat battle that you wanted to kick off during the storm.
Mhm.
And while they're having this longboat battle, the sea starts to flash. The storm, it turns out, is sort of also hiding a titan that's the actual lion-headed titan. And as these two sort of clash during the longboat battle, they get sucked into the sea and wake up on Monster Island. So here you have some stuff that you need to do. First, you need to, I think, decide if your Viking man, your big ass Viking man, is actually going to make it this far, because there is a world where Mads Mikkelsen's rune kills him on the land, and that's what causes the Vikings to make it out. But since then, you've decided maybe it'd be fun to have him or a version of him show up on Monster Island, in which case he would have to get sucked into this. So you have to decide, is your lead opposing Viking here? I forget what Phelan said his weird name would be, but some dude who's maybe, I don't know, maybe he has a bird totem with him or some such.
Oh yeah, Vidir Fulnir?
Vidir Flamir?
The eagle
possibly?
guy? Is that him?
I mean, if you want him to be the eagle guy,
he doesn't have to be. He can be his own man.
Or just if he's here at all, because at
Sure.
least in the initial description of the plot, sort of like he had to die in order for them to be, and you're sort of like cleaning up the last bits with this longboat
Sure.
fight. But if you want this to be much more drawn out, and now, we have to do some story work between Rune and Thyra. We have to show sort of like how deft one or they are at ocean battle, if we're going to eventually have to do some sort of pivoting to helping Godzilla at the end during reshoots. So what would you like out of this sequence?
I think we could
And
accomplish.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we could accomplish everything we want to do here.
Okay.
And keep the guy around to potentially come back and be our killer, our human killer of Rune. Let's say that our Vikings are approaching the island and they are set upon immediately by this dude's ship. And the entirety of the battle happens at sea. And Rune's defeat of him involves him like booting his ass into the sea at right before everyone else gets sort of sucked into the storm. So that it's like he does get him, but also he just falls into the sea mysteriously and he could come back later. Right? Like he kind of ends up where everybody else ends up as well. Because then we don't have to do two fights. We don't have to do a beach fight and then transition into a storm fight, like a sea battle. We could just be like, they're approaching the island and they think they're going to go to the beach and lay siege to this guy's camp. But this guy is like tactically very smart and comes out to meet them on the water.
All right. I like this, but your complication is actually going to put your rolls up because you have shot the beach stuff already.
Oh.
So you would be tossing a bunch of your movie.
Okay.
Which you can do here on this set.
Well, I don't.
But it was
necessarily wanna do that.
It was
I
also
forgot that we
beach
already
stuff you
the beach
shot.
stuff.
It's beach stuff you shot. Also, that was like time for your Vikings to bond.
Yeah.
It was with a backstory with runes that has changed. So it is possible that you could survive without doing it, but your rolls are going to be harder. I'm going to make it a determination roll because you're basically...
we don't necessarily have to do that then.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get rid of that beach stuff. There's a lot of good character development there.
Yes.
But
and the cool idea that like they're out to fight a monster and it ends up being a man.
Yeah.
You would lose the Beowulf stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to keep the Beowulf stuff. But I do want the guy to survive to the sea battle. So that he can get kicked into the water, basically. So that Rune gets his victory and it kind of looks like we've defeated him, but we can bring him back later if we want. Like there's plausibility to him surviving long enough to come back and be the ultimate human villain of our story.
All right. I think that is very much going to help you. So I'm going to say a determination roll of 6 is going to give it to you, or an experience roll of 5, and your experience is D4 plus 3, so it's going to be easier to clear 5. And determination also probably easy to clear because that's your D10.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what's at stake: failure takes $1 million off of the budget.
Okay. So I've
And a
still got some
success
left, right?
You still have some budget left. You still have $10.5 million left.
Great. Okay. It's not the worst thing in the world, but
And you don't know what's going to happen with post-production or whatnot, but you do have money to, spend. And you haven't had to go to the studio for more money, which, like, if it gets to the point where it's like we don't have a movie or you need more money, that'll be an interaction we need to have. But
yeah, the deeper into production we can get without having to do that, the better it'll be, I think, if we have to do that later.
So if you roll a 1 determination on your experience, that is 4 off.
Mm-hmm.
But if you roll 1 determination, if you roll a 1 on your experience, that's $4 million off. If you roll a 1 on your determination, that's $5 million off. So it's a very slight difference in extreme failure. Any success adds 1 die to both your box office roll results, because this is what makes you pay off. You are up to, as of this week, 8 D4 per domestic and international box office. That is, and each one is $1 million. So if you roll a 4 and a D4, that's $4 million. All
right.
You have 8 of those right now, and you're gonna possibly add 3 this week if you're successful in everything.
Okay.
So here we go. Experience of 5 or determination of 6. For the C sequence.
Let's go with experience. It's been working really well for me so far, and I'm going to keep rolling with it until it lets me down. All right, here we go. It's a tiny little die on the experience. That is a 2 plus 3 is a 5. All right.
So you are going to hit it right on the money.
Oh, I placed those bonuses so well.
You did place the bonus as well. Well, I mean, we're going to see how it is.
Sure.
Reputation is very pre-production and post-production based. I mean, not post-production at all, but like the media tour based.
Sure.
So your reputation die isn't going to come up really much here in production at all.
Mm-hmm.
But you are using these creativity, leadership, determinations very well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to get to the press tour first.
Here we go. Next location, you move to the Ice Mountain sets. You gave the designers all the time they need. So not only are there multiple pieces of sculpted sets that can be rearranged into different parts of the mountain, but 2 of those arrangements are for different caves. Also on set, 1 full-sized ice spider that can be used for lighting reference. The legs of the ice spider can also be removed to be used in some shots should the in-camera effects be required. So you can puppeteer legs at them, or you could squeeze the body in a hole. Whatever you want to do, you've got a break-apart ice spider model that your VFX team knows how to create in post-production. Thyra, her team of Vikings, and maybe the Roman couple, depending on your choices, have to take the squirrel device up to the top of the mountain, chuck the device in, then rush down the mountain to join with the Act 3 climax with Godzilla and jungle beach footage you already shot last week.
Right.
So if you recall, the way we join this is we're coming down the ice mountain, and as we rejoin the jungle, Baragon and Godzilla are fighting, and we're following them at ground level as they run towards the beach.
Right.
So however this sequence ends, that's how it ends. Neil, what do you want to shoot on these sets?
I mean, we obviously need to shoot the climactic moments before they get to the top of the mountain, right?
Okay.
Which we want to build tension. The method of their descent is interesting to me, because this could be sort of an interesting like plot bottleneck if we make it too long, right? Like it could be a very like Gendry running through the north type of situation, where we're just spending too much time with them having to run back down the mountain. But we also have this mountain that's like cracking apart, right? As Godzilla is coming. And we don't necessarily, we have some idea of how much it's cracking apart, but what if they are falling down the mountain? And we can come up with a clever way for them to descend very quickly down the mountain. I don't want to say they like surf a giant piece of ice, but what if they surf a giant piece of ice down the mountain? And that allows them to descend very quickly. It can also be accomplished in a wide shot. And, we don't have to necessarily do a ton of like stunt work there, right? It's not a lot of running and jumping stunts. It's more of a falling stunt, and holding on for dear life to a giant piece of ice stunt, which can be a lot of which can be accomplished digitally. And that gets them back to ground level very quickly. So then we just pick up with all the stuff we shot on the beach, and they're like, and that kind of gets them out of the way plausibly as the mountain is like breaking apart, because otherwise the audience is going to be like, how did they run fast enough to get out of the way of Godzilla blowing this mountaintop off? So I think they kind of need to fall.
All right.
But, it's a movie, so they survive.
It is a movie. They do survive.
And you know what? We could lose a couple of the background people if we need to, if we feel like it's not super plausible, None of our named players, but, some background Vikings could maybe not make it here.
So I like that. I'm just trying to decide what options to give you here in terms of roles. I'm going to say creatively, I like it, and I like how loose you are with maybe being open to some of the stupider decisions. So I'm going to say a creativity of 14.
Okay.
In order to beat it on your D20. I'm going to say a leadership of 5, because so far so good on the leadership dice, but you are basically pitching to the Viking people like they're part of the story. This is the Anya Taylor-Joy, Renette, Christopher show. This is the stuff that they get to, do that's going to put them on the poster. So this is important for them, and you are going to tell them that, you have taken that into account, and here's what you want to do. That's your leadership role. And then if you want to be like really cheeky, I say if you could do a determination of 9. I don't know why you'd roll that. That's really too high. But if you just want to force this by force of will, where like, I don't know how some of these pieces fit together, but the dice say they do. So God damn it, they do. I'm going to say determination of 9.
That would be a little psychotic of me, but
it would be psychotic. Failure becomes negative modified to your critic score. Success, like previous, becomes 1 die to both box office results, just to tempt you into the determination roll. If you roll a 10 and blow up, I will give you 1 die to the box office results for each one on your second roll.
There's no way I'm doing that.
Okay, good. I just tried. I just thought it'd be fun to tempt you.
All right, so it's either creativity of 14 or leadership of 5?
Correct.
That creativity dice, it did so well for me earlier. Do I tempt fate with it again?
It does put you possibly. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Failure becomes a negative modifier in your critic score. So you can't run out of money, but you can lose some clout.
Sure.
You could lose more clout on creativity than you can on leadership.
Right. So maybe the leadership is the better one because there's less to lose there. But there's more to gain with the creativity die because there's potentially a +6 if I hit a 20.
Success is just 1 die to each.
Oh, okay. So success isn't a scale here.
It is not a scale. Okay. I was giving you on determination to try to tempt you into the horrible roll.
Right.
But since you're definitely not doing the horrible roll, I will remind you that you have that D6 crew die, which will absolutely save you in leadership if you roll a 1. might not be able to save you in creativity, even
Right.
if you roll a 1.
This is good. This is good to know. All right, let's roll leadership. Yeah.
Leadership.
Anything
we're
but a 1
looking-
will do here.
Yeah, we're looking to beat a 5. Here we go. That is a 4
Ooh.
on
okay.
your leadership.
So +1, that's a
Would you
5.
like to take a -1? Yeah, you could take a -1 on your critic score, or you could use your crew die to boost that up, and your crew die will absolutely boost that up to box office points.
Let's take the -1 on the critic score. We're not making this for the critics. We're making this for the fans.
Excellent.
And that is something I will say multiple times on the press tour. So I feel like I might need that D6 crew die here in a moment.
All right, so your critic score was a certain number of D20 dice +3, and now it goes to +2 because you took that one off.
Still could go well.
Still could go well. Encounter number 3. This is the Lupita Nyong'o week. So you are back in the settlement as the visitor is unveiled. All the Vikings are alive. Mads is back after taking a week off to let you shoot some ice spider stuff.
Great.
And you rolled pretty well. So I think what you're going to have here is a battle of, I think, charismas in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So Rune thinks he knows what's going on, and the visitor thinks she knows what's going on. And because you rolled correctly, I think there's a possibility that as the dialogue exposition scene is going on, Lupita Nyong'o will play the recognition that if she yes ands Rune, she might get this quest done.
Sure. Because as our
So I think-
as our plot has suggested, our description of this character suggested, she is from a more modern time.
Correct.
So she should be able to recognize that these Vikings are from a more primitive era, and they have a more limited view of like the science of what's going on with them, and that it may behoove her to play along with the religious explanation for Rune in order to motivate him.
All right. So you did,
Because she's just like, I got to get this job done, man. I got to get this nuke into the mountain. It doesn't matter what I have to say to this Viking guy. I got to get this shit done.
yeah. I mean, do you think that she sees any future for herself should the nuke get into the volcano? I guess it's a question Lupita would ask you. Is the visitor, this has to happen at all costs? And if so, why doesn't she do it herself?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I do think that she does think it has to happen at all costs. Maybe we have her have some sort of backstory where she tried it and was not able to get up the mountain. Like she limited resources, right? Like she wasn't able to do it herself. And maybe we give her a cool injury, like a cool scar. We'll see if Lupita likes that. Because that's kind of badass. Where it's like, when I first got here, I realized this is what I needed to do in order to hopefully get home, right? That would be her her goal. And sort of get back to my mission. Because we kind of think she's an agent of Monarch. And that it failed pretty miserably. And maybe that happened recently. Maybe she hasn't been here that long. And she's still recovering from that injury. And it's very convenient that these Vikings have shown up, because now she can give them the mission, and they're dumb because they're from the 900s, but they're very strong. So they may be the useful idiots that she has been looking for, and that could help her get what she needs out of the situation. So, and I do think that this could lead for her character like an endpoint for her character, which we haven't really super discussed, what if she ends up on the boat back in modern times as well? What if this is the play that she makes that does actually get her back to her own time with these Vikings?
All right. I like all of that. I think you thought it through and connected some stuff on the fly. Very good. So I'm going to say leadership of 5, or because it is a lot.
Sure.
And it is sort of like a lot to add at the end. I will also say creativity of 14.
Okay.
But again, a failure becomes a negative modifier in your critic score. So you could have as much as 13 points off of your critic score, which is a whole letter grade.
There you go.
Or a success becomes 1 die to both your box office results because you just get everything you want.
Sure. I mean, I feel like
So leadership 5, creativity 14.
this is another leadership role. Anything but a 1 here. It's fine.
Anything but a 1. Here we go for leadership. Oh, that is a 6.
Oh, hell yeah. Does that mean it blows up?
So it blows up. Here
Holy
we go
shit.
again. That is a 1, but that means your total score is a 7.
All right. Well, plus 1.
So not only do you get 2 box office results, but Lupita's into it.
Excellent.
Very much so.
I knew we'd get along.
She is going to work with you here. She is going to have an injury. It is going to make her mobility very difficult. She got this injury retrieving the device, and so she knows it has to go up the ice volcano, but there's no way in the world she's ever going to be able to go up the ice volcano.
I like that too, because that means that she got this injury succeeding at something, but it does also prevent her from being able to finish the job.
And it does add something that we were sort of missing from our Act 3, which is why would we really care if our heroes got back out of just them surviving?
Mm-hmm.
But if we want the visitor to get off, let's say, because of your fantastic creativity rolls and writer who may or may not be me, your Roman wife is going to stay and help the visitor slowly to the boat as her husband accompanies the Vikings up the ice mountain. And he will need to return to her. And therefore, no matter how much Thyra might think that completing the journey itself is honoring her father, there will be some members in the party that need to go back.
Sure.
Because there needs to be an exit strategy.
Additional emotional stakes. I'm into it.
You got to love it. All right, you didn't have to roll any failure die. You did have 1 failure, but it just knocked 1 off your critic score. And it sounds like you got everything that you needed in terms of this story. It does sound, Neil, like there will possibly be next week some reshoots.
Sure.
I definitely hear there might be a post-credit scene. So if we don't shoot that soon, we should at least schedule that before December, where you're going to not have Anya Taylor-Joy in your post-credit scene.
Right. Well, and
And-
you know, hopefully that's not too complicated to shoot.
And I do think there is a possibility that if you want to add to the climax, not only the visitor being there, but a scuttled Roman warship with a poison-tipped ballista bolt, I think we could squeeze that into reshoots, being somewhere on the coast of this monster island.
Send that over to the design team, see how they feel about it, I guess.
But yeah, next week we kick off post-production.
I have a question. This D6 crew die that I was supposed to use, that I didn't use, does that just go away now? Right? Because you were like, you have to use it in Lupita Week, but I didn't fail anything in Lupita Week.
Oh, you only had to use the penalty in Lupita Week.
Oh, okay.
I think the crew die is more dependent on the crew. So I'm gonna keep it
As long as
if
we're
you do
still
resources.
Yeah.
If you do reshoots, you get the full 6 crew die. If you get through it without needing it, I'll just turn it into a lost token, and we could go from there.
Sure. Okay. Well, you know, maybe it'll pay for the rap party.
Maybe it'll pay for the rap party. But we did it. We successfully shot Godzilla Awakening. Nobody died on set. That's great news.
Amazing news.
Everybody feels creatively fulfilled. You got a whole bunch of different monsters in there.
They're going to be
Can't
pairing
wait.
me and Lupita up on the press tour for junket interviews because we're such best friends now.
And maybe we get some more franchise involvement because everything's been working out. So just to let you know how the remaining week's going, we got 1 week of editing that you could also include with reshoots if you would like. No need to make that decision now. I'll let you guys know at the beginning of the next week's episode. Then we have post-production, which could include more reshoots, but will definitely include finalizing some of your effects. Then the marketing week, and then as Monarch Legacy of Monsters airs its finale episode 10 of season 2, we will have our finale rolls, and we'll finally figure out how Godzilla Awakening does, both at the box office and critically. And you know what, Neil? There's no win condition. You could just decide if you made a good Godzilla movie.
Sure. I mean, listen, I think at this point, so far, the first win condition is the movie getting made? And it is getting made. So...
It's happening. It has been shot, but so have lots of movies you've never seen.
It's true.
Join us as Storm of Spoilers continues, both watching Monarch Legacy of Monsters and producing Godzilla Awakening. Also, go out there, be excellent to each other. See you next week.